Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, to the Beyond the Summit series, Southeast Asia. We're going to be taking a look here at a match between MVP.Hot6 as well as Team Redemption in what should be a very interesting one. It's worth noting that I do believe 408 days ago today was the last time that we ended up seeing these same group of people from Team Redemption play up against them, as they are formerly the Team Arrow. But going to be having a little bit of redemption here, as their name does imply. I'm at Lyrical Dota, joined today, excuse me, by at Danny Lee Casts, as well as Corrupt Drop Air on the stats. How are you doing today, Danny? And are you excited to see what these teams are going to bring to the table?
Not just excited, but super fresh as well. We've got another game after this as well, another best of 3 series, which is Execration versus Kingdom. Should be looking forward to that one as well. But for Team Redemption, it's been so long. We are not going to have any sort of expectation as to how these players are going to be playing. So we may be seeing something fresh, it could be seeing something old. But I'm really happy to see this team playing again. It felt like because of the 3-2-2, they had potential, right? You saw that team, they were up and coming in the C region. They had a lot of potential. But due to unfortunate circumstances, they had to be shoved down for a little bit. So for Redemption, do you have any sort of expectations for them, or is it more just a comeback?
Well, I think a comeback, like you said there. I like to see the Darkseer pick first, because if you think about the way that they ended up working in the scene last time around, you ended up having a situation where they were building around sort of the strong meta at the time, which we've kind of seen come full circle a little bit. They were picking a lot of Doom back in the day. They were picking a lot of Darkseer. They ended up going into the TI4 to be able to eventually get knocked out of there, and obviously they were making it pretty far in the Summit too as well. So all in all, like, DDZ as well as Lance, they were feeling really strong to me. Also, I think that in the last game that they ended up playing, they were picking a Razor and a Spectre as well, who of heroes we've occasionally seen. So I think that this is a really interesting point for them to come back into the meta, because it's all heroes that they're pretty comfortable with before, and now maybe going to have a bit of a resurgence, maybe going to be able to see them really come to their full potential, and I'm excited. So we are going to be seeing, as we talked about, the Darkseer picked up, as well as the Bane, Shadowfiend, and Winter Wyvern. Not going to be making an appearance this time are the Slardar, Doom, Tusk, or Queen of Pain.
Yeah, so it looks like already right off the bat we're going to have Team Redemption going for a little bit of team fight here. They don't have to completely go into the team fight with the Darkseer Winter Wyvern. They can sort of move off into a different path, but can always fall back to that combo. We didn't really get to talk about MVP.Hot6. They had minor draft changes. They had Jerax shifting out back into Finland. Did they lose anybody else?
I don't think so.
I think they may have moved one more off. I'm not too sure. I'll have to confirm that for you if I get the chance to. But for Hot6, the last games I actually casted of these guys, they do work very well as a team. They've got lots of synergy going in together. They love to play aggressive. That is the major. That's the major thing when you look at both MVP teams. They both love playing hyper-aggressive Dota. So expect a lot of aggression from them. They do come to issues where sometimes they become too aggressive, and they give too much away to the enemy. So I think, depending on what kind of draft that they're going, if they can find a solid draft that should not run into that issue, then I think for Hot6, they should have a relatively easy game. But if they do have a small window of opening for Team Redemption to maybe overtake them, if they do, I suppose, mess up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see what they end up bringing to the table here. It's going to be a curious one indeed, as we do end up seeing the Undying picked up, as well as the Bounty Hunter, and getting into position now. Ember Spirit also going to be banned out, as well as the Juggernaut, Gyrocopter, and the Dazzle. I'm a little bit surprised to see the Bounty Hunter picked up here. It's not something that you would normally expect, considering there is, a lot of team fight potential that comes out from the Darkseer and Winter Wyvern. So a little bit of an interesting combo there. Obviously, the hero is great for being able to have catch-up potential, and this is something that the Darkseer Winter Wyvern are always going to be giving you, but it looks like maybe they're laning or pushing a little bit more towards the late game, and I kind of like the PL pick here as well. It's going to be a great way to counter out that Undying Tombstone, and it also gives you an opportunity to scale well into the late game. And while Shadowfiend is always going to be relevant and always going to be able to do a lot of damage very quickly, you need to be able to keep your eye on this PL, because if he starts getting up those items, the Scotty starts getting up eventually down the line, the Manta, even a Heart later on, he's going to be nigh unkillable, and they don't have a ton of ways to deal with him right now. You take a look, Bane, incredibly single target focused. Shadow Fiend, while he does have elements of being able to do a lot of damage, a lot of, in terms of an AoE, a lot of that damage is magical in an AoE, and his right clicks are still single target. So they need some other way to be able to do it. Maybe just identifying which hero is the real PL in the middle of all of that scrum is going to be the right answer, but I like also the ban here of the Sven.
Absolutely, but the thing is with Hot6's draft, you look at these heroes and they're so early game oriented, so you're looking at Hot6 and they're thinking, we want to fight very, very early. We want to fight before the Bounty Hunter track gold really kicks in. We want to fight before the PL. Well, actually, never mind. Anti-Mage just completely throws my theory out the window. But they do have a very strong 4 Protect 1 lineup, and Anti-Mage also does very well up against the Phantom Lancer, actually scaling better in the late game scenario. So it looks like for the moment, both teams are looking into going for aggressive styles of play. They want to actually fight the other team to delay it for their own carry. I think the problem here with Redemption is that you pick a Bounty Hunter, and what does that hero excel at the most? He excels at single target pickoffs, or if at least you can just sort of peel heroes off and get those track kills. But you look at Hot6, does it look like they want to separate? I honestly don't think you're going to find Bane, Shadow Fiend, Undying, and Night Stalker separating once they get their levels and items. Anti-Mage maybe, but the lockdown's not there for Redemption. How do they deal with this Anti-Mage?
I think that it was the perfect pick for them at this point. They're also going to have that extended, team fight, or not team fight, rather, vision advantage, because you've got the Night Stalker there eventually once he ends up getting the Aghanim Scepter. And they're going to go for a last pick, Meepo. Oh, Team Redemption. My heart beats still. This is what I like to see. You come back strong in these games. You're gone for however long. I think the last official match on record from Dat Dota was like back in the 5th of this month, or I think about 6 months ago or so, and then they end up coming back with a Meepo pick. This is wonderful. I am super excited.
So, Meepo pick. Now, what does Meepo bring to the table that a lot of other heroes don't typically bring? Meepo's really good at split push. He's also great at catching blinkers, so Anti-Mage, if he gets caught by the net, can't really get out of there. What else does the Meepo really bring? He comes online very early as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that he's going to be somebody to stand up to this Shadow Fiend in lane, and I'm assuming that this is going to be that Meepo in the mid lane. So very, very cool. And I think that it gives you a lot of questions now that you need to answer. Sort of, it's doubling down also on the fact that a lot of MVP.Hot6's draft is built around being sort of really aggressive but single target focused. So I just love that. Really excited to see how this ends up going. We'll do a quick little introduction for all of the players here. For Team Redemption, we do have MTR, who's going to be playing on that Bounty Hunter. Also, Zhang Zai is going to be on the Darkseer, heading up there to the top lane. DDZ is going to be your Meepo today. We do have Mozun, who's going to be playing on the Winter Wyvern. I'm sorry about pronunciation, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very sorry about that. And last but not least, Lance playing his Phantom Lancer here for Team Redemption. Oh, God, it's terrible.
Oh dear. Alright then, so it seems like you've given me the more difficult team yet again.
Oh my
If
God,
I
I'll
could
stop.
speak Chinese, that would be awesome. No, it's fine. So on the side of MVP.Hot6 up towards the top lane, we've got, oh Jesus.
Jojoboji.
Oh wow, okay, you made this really hard. I went to Korea, but it doesn't mean I actually learned Korean pronunciations, but we've just got the Night Stalker on the Night Stalker today, up towards or down towards the Secret Shop. We've got Doctor on our Shadow Fiend, Heen handling our Undying, Anti-Mage on the Anti-Mage, aggressive, playing on the Bane. Now people are saying this is the CDEC aggressive. Is this true?
He's tagged up as such, and it does seem like that is going to be what they're going to have happen. So kind of interesting there to be getting a little bit of a stand-in. Also worth noting that Night Stalker did end up getting, it is not, okay, they did end up, thank you Corrupt Drop there on the stats, they did end up being able to deny out this ward up here for the Night Stalker. So a nice little win there at the very beginning. Meepo also going to be able to pick on up the Bounty Rune up there in the top spot, which is going to make his laning stage a little bit easier. Now, this is something that's very interesting also that you need to keep in mind. Oftentimes when you end up thinking about Shadow Fiend in the early stages of the game, he wants to be able to get himself, as we might end up seeing, a courier kill. Now, they're going to keep it up there on the high ground, realizing the inherent danger of having a Bounty Hunter in the game. But you want to often get him off to a really good start because he has low base damage. But if you take a look at the relative base damage here, Meepo actually has significantly lower base damage. So him denying creeps out is not really going to be an option as long as both players are playing about at the same level. And it's going to be a tough one to see, as we do end up having a little bit of damage up here in the top lane. They rotated the peel up there as well.
So PL versus Night Stalker matchup, typically be looking at the Night Stalker being the much more stronger hero, and Lance actually jumping a little bit of trouble here, having to throw out the nuke to make sure that there is no chase from the Night Stalker. Rotation's coming in though, he's pretty low. He's got no extra region outside of the tango. He's got to be very careful. They could pick him off here, and it looks like they are going to go try and attempt to get for the Night Stalker, and it looks like it should be an easy kill. First blood going in the way of Team Redemption, already redeeming themselves in this first game with a first blood.
Nice, very good. And yeah, that is going to leave open the mid lane a little bit longer for Meepo to be slightly vulnerable here, but considering that we're not actually seeing those rotations by the supports in quickly enough, I don't think that they end up really finding anything here. Also worth noting, Shadow Fiend only at level 2 right now, doesn't really have the damage to burst down this Meepo as of yet. They're going to need probably at least level 2 raises, as well as a pretty clutch Nightmare there on the Bane to be able to keep him alive. But this is the other thing about Meepo, is that if you think about the way that Nightmare ends up interacting, is we have a bit more damage up top. They're just going to push the Nightmare, or the Night Stalker rather, out of range. He can take the Nightmare off of himself and just sort of rotate in as long as he has the other Meepo relatively nearby, and can be a bit of a trouble to try and make any real type of effective gank happen on that hero, particularly if you have any type of TP rotations.
Yeah. So for the moment, we have a bit of a jump here onto unit thing. They want to apply the slow. It's going to be there, and Lance should be able to finish. No, he actually does not finish him off. In the meantime, the Winter Wyvern gets it. They still get the kill on the Undying, but it's still going to be a massive win here for Team Redemption, as the Phantom Lance is having a very good time in this top lane. He hasn't really gotten kills going his way. He's got 2 assists, but it means that this top lane has had a lot of aggression thrown out in the way of MVP. And if they want to get that back, they need to commit their support. They're only going to bring in Heen as the Bane is going to continue on roving around, but let's be honest, what contribution has the Bane really provided so far? Is he just going to sit in mid lane to keep Doctor alive? Is he supposed to go for stacks? Because the stacks don't seem to be happening either.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of a tough one to make happen here. Like, they're not really in a great position to have anything go their way so far. We do end up having a bit of a find over here. Undyne was able to scout on out the Winter Wyvern, but that's just going to be a quick little walk away after the Arctic Burn was committed. And meanwhile, in the mid lane, yet again, we have the Bounty Hunter jumping forward. This is going to be a quick little poof here. Doctor might end up going down, and just like that, Meepo ends up getting another kill. Is going to be hasted rune away. One more bottle charge is going to keep him there and turn him back around. Febby might be going down shortly. Also, no, not going to opt to do it. They back on out, as we did end up getting that stat come in that it is going to be Febby on the Bane there in the mid lane, statted up as aggressive.
Yeah, so it looks like in the top lane, they're going to try and jump onto Lance. It seems like they do, and they just melt him here with Heen as well as our Night Stalker. Unfortunately, the Wyvern, without any points in the Cold Embrace, really isn't able to provide any sustain. Shadowfiend gets a kill on the Meepo, did not get to see that, unfortunately, but still a very, very nice kill going in the way of the Shadowfiend, considering that he had a pretty rough time in this mid lane. Getting a counter kill definitely going to be helping him out. Now, the matchup we haven't really spoken about so far is the Anti-Mage Darkseer, and the slight advantage you have in running an Anti-Mage against a Darkseer is that he's obviously being melee, you're going to be at a slight disadvantage, but if you just put points into Spell Shield, you can really mitigate the amount of damage output from the Darkseer, and you can sit in lane almost forever as long as you have that constant regen, which is what the Ring of Health is going to provide. And CS-wise, Anti-Mage is doing pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. He's been having a great time, as we do end up having a little bit more action up in the top lane. Yet again, they're going to jump onto the Night Stalker. Are they going to be able to burst him down here? He's got a lot of regen. It's also nighttime. If they could find this kill on him right as it's going to go there with Fast Phantom Lance, that's going to be enough to commit that one. And now trying to take out this Tombstone before things get a little too scary here. It looks like Winter Wyvern is going to be able to make her way out of here, as she doesn't have the extra Arctic Burn, but does have boots. So that's going to keep her alive, at least for the time being, and a really huge kill there. The fact that you're able to take out that Night Stalker during nighttime, this is the time when he's supposed to be able to really hit his sort of power curve, and really unfortunate there for the Night Stalker. They ended up going down.
So, with the disadvantage that this Night Stalker has had with such an aggressive lane and dying a couple of times, does he have to go back to a Midas? Does he wait till the second nighttime? What would you really do with the Night Stalker? Would you still be aggressive with him? I think that's the main question with this first nighttime.
I think right now you just kind of need to secure your lane a little bit. There isn't an easy lane for him to kill. If he was able to move on over to the side and maybe make a gank happen on the Meepo, that would probably be the best positioning for him, because if you take a look at bottom lane, oh, they end up jumping on top of the, never mind, forget what I'm talking about, they're just going to kill off Lance, and if they end up dropping the tombstone down, I really thought that he was going to be able to stay alive longer. If you took a look, Doppelganger was not committed for that one, and he just needed to have better positioning. I feel like a little bit too far forward, and that's going to be a 600 to 700 gold swing off the back of it, and that sort of mitigates a lot of the damage that ended up happening at the early stages.
Yeah, so good news for the Night Stalker. He needs a little bit more out of this, though. So we'll have to see if the Night Stalker does decide to go for other lane rotations, or if he's going to sit up tight in that top lane and continue on getting his own farm to really commit to that secondary nighttime. 6 minutes in, CS is looking very good actually for Team Redemption. They are mostly ahead of MVP, just slightly behind. If you take a look at the Anti-Mage and the Night Stalker, they're not CSing incredibly well, but they are hanging pretty nicely in their lane. The Anti-Mage has had no contests so far.
Yeah.
So with the current lane that Anti-Mage is in again, does he just rush his Battle Fury? Does he go for treads first?
I like the idea of the Battle Fury first. I think that particularly if you continue to not get sort of pressured super hard at this point, as it does look like we're going to have the Bounty Hunter come on in here and try and soak up a little bit of experience. I think that really you want to try and get off to an early start and a good start. They are maybe going to be able to find him here. No dust in the area, unfortunately, and Bounty Hunter is going to get away from this one scot-free as we have a bit of a chase up here top, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to take on out that Night Stalker, as Undyne's still sticking around. I think Battle Fury makes sense. And if you start getting pressure early, then you can go back for the treads. But I think if you wanted to, you could probably just go for Brown Boots at this point and then right on into the Perseverance.
Yeah, I can really be on board with that. So for timing windows now, so you take a look at both teams. They have objectives. MVP's trying to either buy time for the Anti-Mage or just have a very, very dominant early game so that the Anti-Mage comes online later on. Whereas for Team Redemption, they also, would you say that they also want to move into a semi-late game scenario, or do they just want to secure farm on the Meepo and then just push on forward from that? Because I think that's also an option. They can just group up once the Meepo does have some significant amount of farm.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we talked about in the draft a little bit as we see Doctor take on out these stacks, and Bounty Hunter is going to be able to get the levels off of this. We talked about the fact that this Phantom Lancer is an incredibly dynamic hero. You know, he can go late game if you end up getting those really huge items on him, save for him, and end up going very much into a farming build. The other thing that this hero can do is fight very early. You end up picking maybe a quick drums up on him, and you can start getting into quick early engagements with that Meepo. And to me, that might be the way that they want to go instead, considering how fighting they've been. And they're just going to be able to jump here on top of the Night Stalker yet again. So much damage. Lance is going to come out of this one with the Doppelganger, kill him off, and now maybe going to have to turn their attention on over to the Tombstone. Really good focus there of it, but they end up having just a bit too much damage coming out from the Undyne as PL ends up going down there. Bottom lane, doesn't look like they're going to have anything, just trading hits. But yeah, he microed those illusions pretty effectively, but there was too much damage. And I think that probably drums and then group together with the Meepo once he gets his blink up, I would say. Maybe you end up waiting until blink, because he's probably going to go for Ags first.
It depends. Like I think he is going to be going for Ags first. So he's sitting on 3k gold. There's no reason to not buy the blink dagger if you do have the gold for it. Unless he goes for something such as Boots of Travel. Some Meepos do like to do that as well, having Boots of Travel's global presence and obviously global farming time with each Meepo having their own set of Boots of Travel. So
yeah. A bit more damage up top. They're going to be able to get the Soul Rip out, keeping alive that Night Stalker slightly longer. And, you know, that is one of the options that we talked about also, is that I said that I think probably the strongest play would be if he ends up going for drums, but they don't have to do that either, as we end up seeing Night Stalker get dove again. This is the saddest Night Stalker in the world right now. 1 in 4, he ended up getting killed several times in the first nighttime, and while he did end up getting a return kill, it just really hasn't worked out for him at all. Let's take a look at the team net worth, because that's something to keep in mind. 2,000 ahead in terms of Team Redemption, as well as about 750 experience. So if they end up hitting a timing here before Shadow Fiend gets his mechanism, I think that they can probably push this on out and really start to take a lot of team fights. I don't think they have to, though, and it's really going to come down to feel, and that's probably the coolest thing about this draft, is that you know, I talked about going for the drums, but he could just as easily go for Boots of Travel in this PL and start to try and take away all the farm across the rest of the map, because Team MVP is very greedy at this point. We do end up having the Fiend's Grip committed, and one more right click is going to be enough. They did drop Tombstone for that.
Not sure if you want to go for Boots of Travels this early on, though, onto the Phantom Lancer.
Yeah.
I would still like him to get some early stats first. Because there's a lot of burst potential on MVP, and that silence from the Night Stalker is really, really scary for a hero like PL. He needs his spells. So if he's silenced up, he's a sitting duck, and he's essentially a free kill. So maybe later on down the line, after he's picked up drums, after he's picked up just any sort of stat-based items to really help him out, then it's fine. He goes for power treads instead, though, so he is building up stats.
Yeah.
So the PL, he is preparing to fight. In the meantime, though, we've got a smoke here from MVP, and they've got their eye set on this Meepo. Very, very crucial kill. Can they get it, though?
Oh, they're going to run right on into him. Nightmare's committed. They might be doing this a bit slow, though, as they all show up. They are going to be able to get the brain sap off. That kills him of the pure damage not being reduced by that naturally high magic resistance. But there's the Winter's Curse committed onto the Night Stalker. He's starting to drop pretty low. That's going to be a kill. Now we have them back in the middle of everything. Can they find this one? Lance is doing a lot of damage to them, and unfortunately, they aren't able to find the real Lance. Look at the brain sap damage, though. It's just so immense, and ends up trading the Nightmare over to his illusion. Really well played there by Lance, but can he get out? No, he ends up popping there to the Mana Void. 3 dead, meanwhile. They only end up taking 1 in that Night Stalker, and that was the trouble. They were just able to burst down that Meepo too quickly, and a quick 1,600 gold swing, as well as 2,100 experience.
So this is huge for MVP. All of a sudden, it's going to speed them up towards their item progression, and then once they hit their items in the timing window, I don't see MVP stopping, because this is the signature style of play. If they can get their items as well as their levels, they will just push, and push. They don't honestly care. They take objectives. A very, very objective-based team, honestly. Sometimes you see teams, they'll kind of skip around things a little bit, go for kills, farm a little bit more. MVP, in the meantime, once they get their items, they go straight for objectives. They want to finish the game, essentially. So this is good news for MVP to have a team fight go that way this early.
And of course, you've also got the anti-mage there for that late game sort of insurance policy to make sure that you're going to be able to really scale well into the late game and get the rat going potentially while the rest of your allies end up taking and carrying the team fight. It's still always a really big risk. Like, you looked at how those poofs ended up working for that Meepo there. He'd brought in only 2 of them. He's about to be able to finish off his Aghanim Scepter in just a second as it is being brought out to him. And considering that's going to be the case, he's now going to have 4 of them. That's so much poof damage. Maxed on out, 140. You take that as you go and you receive, so that's going to be 280 times 4 is going to be off the fly math. Right around, what is that, 1,000 and 1,120? Is that correct? That's a lot of damage.
Let's just not even bother doing math. Actually, well, he pops the dust, surprisingly enough. Was probably expecting the bounty hunter to be around the corner, but unless he just misclicked it, it's quite far from the hotkey. No idea. Sometimes it happens. You misclick things. And you think, oh crap, you used my dust.
I
It's
think
fine.
that
Nobody saw.
PL is actually going to go down here in a second, unfortunately. Is going to turn on into him, end up committing the Nightmare. His only hope is just to create a ton of illusions. Does bounce on out of there. They actually don't have the single target lockdown for him as of yet. There's the Fiend script, though, and he is going to go down. And now Bounty Hunter might have overstayed his welcome as well. He ends up getting caught on up with the Dusk Iron Charge committed, and he's definitely going to go down. Night Stalker ends up with another kill and kind of feeding their life away there. They are going to be able to get a couple of objectives while this is happening. Meepo was thinking about being able to jump there on top of the Anti-Mage, just about to be able to hit the net. That does actually commit now, and the poof's on in. That's going to be a kill. Very clutch kill. 800 gold swing for the 2 kills on the Radiant, and then to turn that back around is going to be 600 gold going the direction of the Meepo. But they are going to lose a tier 1 tower here, maybe.
Unless they want a team fight for it, then they're going to bring all their heroes in. Darksy's been the first one to come in with the Wyvern as well as the Meepo. Internet connects onto 2 heroes, going to burst him down. Doctor's dropping very low right in the front line. He will pop the Requiem, but he goes down. The rest of his teammates, do they go for the turn? Looks like they want to try and jump on the Darkseid, but he's already surged down. Now Lance, he wants some revenge, wants to try and take down Heen, this big, bad Undying. He's very tanky, though. In the backside, though, the supports are coming in. There's the Bane. Actually just catches out onto the Darkseid. Going to be toggled through the Winter Wyvern. They will pop over with the Darkseid in the meantime, and Lance just going to go for the tombstone here as the Night Stalker. They will try and nuke down the PL. Now, he's in a lot of trouble there. Know which one's the real one just because of the Ion Shell. That's the disadvantage of this Darkseid. They will manage to pick him off. And, oh, Anti-Mage. They actually toggle onto the Anti-Mage. Going to try and continuously change it through, but they will get that kill finally on the Phantom Lancer. 3 for 2 trade. No buybacks. Huge win for MVP. For Team Redemption, did it feel like it was a bit of an overextension to go that far for some of those kills?
Totally,
honestly
and
felt like it was.
the other thing there that we didn't consider also is that Peel died at the start and the end of that fight. He was the first one that ended up getting picked off, then he came back in and was the last one that ended up getting picked off. And this is your hard carry. This is the person that's supposed to be able to give you that possibility to scale well into the late game. Now, he is going to be going for the drums build, so it's a little bit more about just kill the tombstone and then try and deal as much damage as you can. Actually, I wonder if he's going to go straight Diff Blade. There's the possibility that he was just trying to buy out there with the Robe of the Magi. What do you think about that as a possible build?
Sorry, what was that?
Straight for the Diff Blade instead of going for the drums first.
Oh, he honestly could go for the straight diffusal blade if he really wants to, but you also have to consider how squishy he is this early on. There's a lot of burst potential on the side of MVP, and having the extra damage and the mana burn is great. Also having the slow, the purge from the diffusal blade's great too, but he also has to consider, is there enough on his team to keep him alive in the process as well? He could probably use the rest of his team as a diversion, come in and go for those little pickoffs on the edge, but you know how MVP's focusing him down.
Yeah.
If they see the PL, they will snipe him.
Definitely. Well, Bounty Hunter baiting a little bit here on the top lane. They are going to be able to find him out off to the side, and Meepo is actually not with them for this fight. He's down in the bottom lane, does not have one of his little guys around them, so he's going to be going for split push at this point and should be able to do a pretty decent job of it, but trying to build on up towards that Blink Dagger is, I'm assuming, what he's going to be doing, and the rest of the time his entire other team is going to be moving up on the top lane, trying to create as much space as possible.
Yep. So now that we've had these couple of
He actually picked off the anti-mage. I didn't realize that.
Oh.
Sorry, guys.
didn't do that either. Well, anti-mage is dead now. That's a nice kill though. Just slowing down the anti-mage's progression. 60 minutes in though, anti-mage is close to his battle fury. It's not the most amazing timing. He has got power treasures. He's fighting with the team. DDZ will get out. Not gonna get caught. No, just goes for a proof from the spot. Okay, I think he might be in trouble. Nope. Aggressive will be the first one to go down. Gonna go for the nightmare first. He actually does not get denied. He will get picked off by the Meepo. Now MVP, they see all of these Meepos, so they commit there. There's a lot of them here. They're going to keep on going for the instant. Does not connect. They will finally get the nice one. But here comes the blink in. DDZ. Oh, he's going off everybody. He gets one. But that was so close. All that poof damage.
And that's points in Spell Shield paying off right now. He only ended up leaving one in Mana Brink, realizing how much extra damage you're going to be taking. And that extra 6%, actually, what is that? That's right around 8% magic resistance that you end up getting from a second level in it, really paying off. That's something to keep in mind in this draft, is that a lot of the side for Team Redemption is going to be magical damage. They are going to toss in out the Splinter Blast as well as the Winter's Curse, not yet committed. So I'm just going to let the Shadow Fiend walk away from this one, thinking about it, but not opting to go for it in the end.
They would have been diving under a tower, and you know how MVP goes for the consistent reinforcement. If they see someone under a tower being dove, they will TP in. So I think just smart play for Team Redemption not to go for those overextensions, as we've seen a couple of times that they do overextend, and it's been their downfall. Bounty Hunter just puts a ward down, sees Doctor, just gonna hoof it out of there. 18 minutes into the game now, there's a Bounty Hunter on Team Redemption. We haven't seen too many track kills this game, and I feel like this is a downfall for Team Redemption, because if they didn't have a Bounty Hunter, I think any other support would give them a lot more than the Bounty does. Dust is deployed, and he ends up being free food. Gonna go for a quick TP. Is there anything to cancel? There's the team script. Very close.
That was very close. I think maybe with the longer... Meepo actually going to be able to get a kill on the Undying down here in the bottom lane, so chit for tat as they end up going for it. 500 gold swing into their favor after that one. This is the problem they end up casting Meepo games, is everybody just kind of goes crazy in terms of how much movement there is all around the map. And it does look like the Battle Fury is going to be a little bit behind time for this Anti-Mage, unfortunately. And I think in the meantime also having the Winter Wyvern go for a lot of these nuking type abilities first, this is kind of the constant build that you end up seeing. It's going to mean there's always pressure on the map everywhere that they go, and that's really important, the fact that they're constantly keeping the lanes pushed in. What do you think about the Shadow Fiend with the BKB first item?
BKB first item. The only thing it really provides is that he's not going to be vacuumed, he's not going to get poofed, so a lot of the incoming damage from Team Redemption is going to be mitigated. He can still be Winter's Curse, but I think the fact that the Shadow Fiend isn't going to be taking all that burst damage is going to be a problem for Team Redemption, because they don't have the best physical right click if you look at their draft at 20 minutes in. Later on, the PL is going to be hitting like a truck. Meepo hits quite decently as well, but because of the magic immunity, I think the Shadow Fiend is going to have a massive edge over Team Redemption as long as he doesn't get Winter's Curse. It might even just be so that he has a BKB, he can still get Winter's Curse. Maybe it's just to force the curse away from the rest of his team. Honestly, it's just extra stats, magic immunity. It's just so useful this game, and the 10-second duration as well is huge.
Yeah.
Although picking up a Aegis after that, well, I guess you could die the first time, then pop the BKB when you come back. Then you'll be an
That's
unstoppable force.
That to me seems like the purpose of this is maybe to try and do a slow siege on these towers here and push on into them, just right click them down, sort of bait yourself out there and try and get the initiation there from the Meepo. And while Poof obviously is a pretty low cooldown, I mean, you take a look at the spell as a whole, it's only 6 seconds at the max level. Still, if you're able to have that long cast duration and maybe you end up being able to have, you know, just the first volley go onto the Shadow Fiend, which gets wasted essentially, then you're going to be able to sort of take away a lot of that damage that would come out in other situations. But Anti-Mage, getting the inkling that something might not quite be right up here, is just going to back on out, ends up blinking away from this one, as he did not see anybody else on the map and realizing probably they're right up here in my face and going to be trying to gank me in a second or two. And looks like we might be trading towers in a second.
T1 for T2 though, it's really not that worth it. If they can come back, defend the T2 but get that T1 for free, then it would still be a decent trade for MVP. So Team Redemption, do they commit for this tower? They're hanging around, so it seems like they are going to commit to this 100%.
Well, and we'll see what ends up happening here. A newly finished Diffusal Blade on the PL, which means his positioning is going to be very, very important in terms of making sure he doesn't get picked off. As you alluded to, it's a trade-off. You get a little bit more of a glass cannon build out of this hero. It's not as tanky, and with only 1,000 HP, he really can get picked off early. So we're going to need to see the positioning by him, and probably Meepo is going to be needing to be a little bit more of a frontliner this game than he would otherwise.
So now the Diffusal Blade is done, do they continue with this aggression? They didn't take the tower in the top lane. Do they maybe go for a smoke, try and go for a pick off and move it into an objective?
I think honestly, I think you probably need to wait for the Aegis, unfortunately. And I don't think that hurts him too much, considering you ended up going for the Diff Blade on the PL. This is an item that you're going to want always, versus if you ended up transitioning into drums early. I think this game's going to go late, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And for the PL, if he goes for the drums, that's essentially an item slot wasted. But this is always going to be an item that he's going to want. And eventually transitioning on up to a Diff Blade 2, going to give him that extra little bit of agility, as well as giving him the ability to get more Diffusal Blade charges. And I think that probably that's something that we've seen more often is early upgrades of the Diffusal charges, as well as using it a lot in the early game to make sure that you're able to find those kills and scale well into the late game. But Doctor just going to be pushing on up this top lane. Even though he just has the mechanism in BKB, he is still a Shadow Fiend and pretty terrifying to fight against.
So we're sitting on quite a bit of gold as well. If you look at Doctor's gold pile, it's got 3.3k. Is it just going to be the typical Sand and Yasha? It's normally only picked up because you want cheap, cost-efficient damage, and if you want to finish early. Unless you want to move into a more late-game scenario, what else would you typally see on a Shadow Fiend if you want more cost-efficient damage?
The only other thing that I could think about would be trying to... I've seen it once or twice, was like an early butterfly, rather, which felt very, very strange to me. But it ended up working out okay for him, as we do end up having a Blink Poof immediately here. Going to be able to burst on the Anti-Mage, and that's the power of this hero. This Meepo is not afraid of anybody. He's running right into the midst of them. They're going to be able to commit so much damage there. Requiem of Souls come out, and they do finally get the kill, but it comes at the cost of the Night Stalker and the Anti-Mage. So 75 seconds away, it would have been the Aegis taken down, and kind of an even trade. That was the ballsiest play I've seen today.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with it, but you take a look at what he did. He drew a lot of attention down towards that bottom lane, and now look at top lane. You've got Team Redemption just going for a full-on push in this top lane. And now that you know that 2 heroes are down and also 1 TP is down, the defense in this top lane is not going to be very strong. And there is a chance that Redemption may try and go for a dive on any of these heroes if they do come a little bit too close. So really smart play coming up from Redemption, using Meepo as not just a diversion, but also just to create space for the rest of their team to get those objectives. They catch out the they catch out the Darkseid, but instead they're going to go for the curse straight onto Heen. He's got the Ghost Scepter, but that's not going to be quite enough to keep him alive as Lance going to finish him off. No, Heen's actually going to be able to go out with that heal, and unfortunately the illusion's not quite enough to get him out of there, get him down. So wall deployed, curse deployed, and they got nothing in the process. Tower's pretty low. It's actually in deny range if MVP wants to go for the deny, but they want to play aggressive, as we've got Doctor with an invisibility rune. Not quite close enough to these heroes yet though, and I think at this point, just back up. They didn't lose anything massive, and it's fine.
That's
the zombies around the tower.
Yeah, they're crazy. That's the thing is that like when you end up having the PL in this game, the zombies spawn that much more quickly, and then you get a huge amount of damage or heal that comes out from the soul rip. And I think that it's kind of a really scary heal that you don't often think about. Like when you have a hero like the PL that is able to, burst down the tombstone quickly because of all those illusions, it also makes Undying stronger before the illusions end up taking down the tombstone. So kind of a little bit of a scary situation as we do see the Meepo, as you saw there, start to get closer and closer to being able to pick up that Scythe of Ice in a second or two.
So Scythe of Ice, that's a huge item pickup because it means that he can literally jump onto any hero on the side of MVP, just hex them up, go for the poof combo, and they typically should be dead. Although they're going to try and jump onto somebody, it's going to actually be the bounty hunter. And they should be able to burst him down. He, in the meantime, going to go full on balls deep in that front line. They take 2 down already with the PL, and now we've got everyone on the side of Team Redemption. They need to retreat. They have to get out of here. They're going to prioritize the Meepos. They know how annoying they are. They get the ensnare onto 4. They're going to actually poof them down. Doctor's quite tanky. They're going to try and burst someone down. Nice Stalker going to be healed up again by the Undying. Too many units. It's just not working. And Doctor being focused down by Lance. They're going to start bursting through these heroes. 3 of them are dead so far. Winter's Curse onto aggressive Lance. Wants to try and finish them off. It's just a Bane and an Undying. There's no TPS here. It's just a utility. They can pick them off easily as Undying is down. And now we have our doppelganger.
Oh,
The fake. And the gem. No. Oh no. Do they know the gems? No. That was so close. Oh no.
God, the turnaround there was so spectacular. The Winter's Curse at the, or not Winter's Curse, excuse me, Cold Embrace at the last second by the Winter Wyvern. And I was clicking on the Winter Wyvern throughout the course of that fight because Winter's Curse was off of cooldown in like 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 3 seconds, and barely staying alive, able to get it off at the last second and keep that one Meepo alive even through the Mana Void. It's one of those heroes where you cannot discount the amount of damage that he can deal in a burst to your entire team. If you group up, you're going to get poofed on. And even though they ended up having to commit the buyback by the Phantom Lancer, he's going to, at the end of the day, come out on top of it with the Yasha on top of his Diffusal Blade. He is behind the Anti-Mage, but not crazy far behind. Still very, 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 very good comeback in that engagement. And Team Redemption looking good so far. I'm really impressed.
It's just been how the team fights have been going on after a while. They've got their footing, they've got their tools necessary, and now the team fights are getting a little bit easier. And the thing as well is that if these team fights keep going their way, they're running a bounty hunter, so they're getting more gold than they typically would just because of the track goal. So for Team Redemption,
It's a Scotty, not a Scythe of Ice on the Meepo. This is another great item on him. You obviously get a little bit of extra slow that comes out from the Scotty. It's only committed onto the original Meepo, so it's not as good as you would normally expect on, being able to toss it out on every single one of them. But it's just the pure stats. You look at each and every single one of these Meepos at this point, right around 2,000 HP. They do significantly more damage, 148 a pop. So they're going to be doing as much as one direction of their poof in terms of their right-click damage on top of the Geostrike. So all in all, this item is spectacular on the Meepo, gives you that sustainability, the tank ability to be able to sustain through a Requiem of Souls that comes out from the Shadow Fiend, and now he's going to be even less afraid to jump on top of the whole team fight, and I think this is a great pickup. It's not something I was expecting, but I'm really, really happy with it.
I'm actually really happy with it as well because you also take into consideration that if you're incredibly tanky, what does that also give you? It means that there's more of a necessity for MVP to have damage. And are they actually going to come to a situation where they're going to start running out of damage when, for example, if the 2 cores are dead, what do the rest of the heroes do? There's just no damage output from them. They're not running a Scarith Mage. They don't have any heroes that have any significant burst that scales into the late game outside of the Anti-Mage and Shadow Fiend. So if they can't kill off these heroes with the Anti-Mage and Shadow Fiend, how are they going to deal with them at all?
Yeah, it's a real problem. I mean, you think about the way that you deal with Meepo, and I kind of... It's a bit of a strange situation. You expect big AoE damage to be the thing that you want to look for, but really it's single target damage in Alina, and then like AoE disable. So you think about like a Jakiro, for instance, being able to toss on out an ice path in the middle of everybody, and he catches several of those Meepos there. That was kind of one of the classic examples and ways to deal with a Meepo when he was really big a couple of patches ago, but it looks like we might be ended up spoiling for another fight here. they don't really have the greatest vision of this, and they do have the option to just jump forward, vacuum wall onto 4, Winter's Curse on top of it. Doctor does pop the BKB. That's also going to be the Requiem of Souls out. Everybody is very low. Mana Void on top of the Darkseer. He's just going to be able to run away from that one, though, and they're continuing to chase out of here. My frame rate is dying. Too many zombies all over the map. Lance is trying to run away. So far, it's the Bounty Hunter for the Undying, and that's it. Off the back of it, MVP are in a pretty good spot to be able to fight this one. Where's the Meepo, though? He's ratting up at the top barracks. It looks like Aggressive is going to go down on this Bane. Lance ends up getting out of there. He's not going to be able to defend himself any much longer. Still staying alive throughout all of this. Finally, Anti-Mage is back in. But meanwhile, Meepo, eyes on the prize. Aegis is now picked up. Lance is going to be able to get out of there. Also took the top barracks, and Lance just needs to run away. Oh, is going to be able to get the Invis Rune and walks away on 8 HP. Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh my god.
Oh. It was good.
That was very good. I was watching the PL just completely outplay MVP. What he did was he would consistently micro an illusion rather than the hero, and MVP kept changing target, changing onto the illusion, changing onto the actual PL, because they just didn't know which one was the real one. So it was literally just a chase with the Benny Hill music, really. It was very entertaining, honestly. But getting the Aegis and ratting, massive win for Team Redemption. Their decision making is spot on this game. They know what they want, they know what they need to do, and they're executing it on point. So they got the combo down, they took their objectives, they get out with their major heroes. This is such a massive win for Team Redemption. I honestly am gobsmacked at their performance so far.
It's really impressive. Like, you think about that. I was following around the PL the entire time with the camera, and the whole time that I was doing it, MVP.Hot6 was doing it also. And then you end up just being able to see the Meepo move on up to the top lane, has a guy there ready to poof everybody in, then poofs everybody out back to the Roche pit. You take both of them. Now you've got a Meepo with Aegis, a huge net worth lead. You're ready to start taking the other tier 2s. And Darkseer now picks on up the Sheep Stick. Like, they are in such a great position. Looking at it, 13k net worth. In terms of experience, we're at about the same, and I don't see them stopping at any given point in time. There's no way for MVP.Hot6 to really effectively deal with this. They have disables, but it's mainly single target. They have damage, which is AoE, and not being able to really burst a single target down. Look at that Night Stalker fall. He is going to finally go down there with one last toss of the shuriken from that Bounty Hunter. Tracked on up. Why not?
And they're not going to commit onto him. So it looks like for the most part, they're going to stick together and they're going to go for the push. And this is a really bad situation to be in if you're MVP. Because look at buyback status. They've only got one buyback, and it's on the Night Stalker. It's essentially on one of the heroes that if he doesn't have buyback, it's okay. If it's on the Anti-Mage and the Shadow Fiend, then at least they've got a decent chance at defense. But with the Night Stalker, yeah, buyback's not really going to be his friend.
Oh, jump forward. They don't connect onto Doctor with all of the poof damage as yet. That's the BKB popped. It's keeping him alive a little bit longer. Look at all this damage, though. The right clicks abound. They're going to be able to get the Winter's Curse on top of them. Still staying alive throughout it, but that's finally going to be a kill on the Anti-Mage. The Tombstone zombies are just too much for any computer to be able to hold, and it looks like that's a killing spree for him. Heen getting chased up all across his base. He's going to go down to the Geo Strike as well. There's no way to be able to defend against this as the Ghost Scepter does come out, but still poof damage goes through it. GG ends up getting called. Team Redemption, we're not going to make that pun again, but you guys know what it's all about. Really well played for them.
I'm super impressed with the way they played here. During the early game, it was a little bit shaky. It was definitely in favor of MVP, but they got their footing, and once they got their footing, they stood there and they fought right through MVP. So MVP, what do you feel like was the downfall for them? Was it just the fact that Meepo and their whole team just got a little bit too big? Was it because they weren't aggressive enough? Was it because they're lacking items? What do you think was the downfall?
I think honestly it's what you said there. It was the Meepo needing to have the answers, and they just didn't have it. A last pick Meepo, if you're not capable of dealing with it, can really, just destroy your draft. And I think also the fact that they didn't necessarily rotate as well effectively early, like no matter what they were going to be behind in the draft, but I also felt like there were various points where Team Redemption ended up outplaying them. And if you're already out drafted, you got to come with also just the sort of consistent good execution. And unfortunately, we didn't end up seeing that time. So GG, well played. Moving on to game 2 in just a second here at Lyrical Dota, as well as at Danny Lee Cast and Corrupt Drop Bear on the stats. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back in just a second. Stick around.